When narcissists run out of people to blame, they hit a major midlife crisis. Their life suddenly feels purposeless. They spiral into an existential crisis because without anyone to blame or derive sadistic pleasure from, they lose their sense of identity completely. Depression sets in as they are forced to face themselves, something they have avoided all their lives. With no one left to project their misery onto, they are left sitting alone with their own darkness. The collapse of the facade. This is the stage where their entire facade collapses. I'm Samir, a narcissistic abuse recovery professional. Welcome to my channel. The topic for today is, the fact of love, and the fate. The narcissistic abuse collapses. Back to the topic. They start realizing that their entire life is fake and that there is no authenticity to it. Everything is superficial, even the closest relationships, and that realization hits them real hard. Without any external supply, they no longer recognize who they are. They do not collapse because people abandon them, no. They collapse because their entire existence was built on avoiding themselves. And when the crowd leaves and the lights go out, they finally meet the one person they have been running from their whole life, their own emptiness. This is where the decay begins. Slow, invisible, yet merciless. They start aging faster, losing the vitality that once drew people in. Their eyes lose their shine because the performance is completely over. They sense that their own mask is slipping, and they cannot fix it anymore. Blameshifting and denial. When those people leave or stop listening, they start blaming small things. The door, the chair, the phone, the dog, the weather. Basically anything that helps them stay angry at something outside of themselves. This shows how deeply they fear self-reflection. They must believe they are pure, perfect, and misunderstood. So they push every bit of dirt away from themselves. But when there is no one left to project onto, they start to go deeper into denial. The mind begins to create new fake enemies. Their world turns into a battlefield of good and evil, and they always place themselves on the good side. They start seeing patterns where none exist, thinking that people or entire systems are working against them. The problem is no longer personal, it becomes global. They become extremely paranoid. Suddenly, everyone is out to get them. This is where their conspiracy thinking begins. They become conspiracy theorists. The narcissist brain cannot live without blame, so it makes up a new story every day, something big enough to carry all their craziness. They start believing in imaginary haters, the opposition, or corrupt people. They may say, "Everyone is jealous of me," or "They're trying to silence me." They cannot just admit they made a mistake or lost control. It always has to be someone else's fault. This kind of thinking makes them feel special in a very different way, as if their suffering is the proof of their importance. When their life collapses and everyone around them has walked away, they turn to larger ideas to keep that ego alive. Some become obsessed with extreme politics. They start posting or talking about the truth, the greatness, their real enemies, or the system. They act like warriors fighting for justice. But what they are really doing is fighting their own shame through that leader. Politics or social causes become a new mask to hide behind. They're not interested in solving problems, are they? They are interested in proving they're right and others are extremely wrong. If you look closely, it is the same pattern they once used in relationships. Before, they used to say, "You ruined everything," to their partner. Now they say, "The government, the past government ruined everything," where the media is lying. They have changed the target, but the habit stays the same. They cannot survive without enemies, can they? Their identity depends on opposition. At this point, their mind becomes very unstable. They start losing the ability to tell what is real and what's not. Every disagreement feels like an attack. Every rejection becomes proof that the world is actually against them. They twist stories to make themselves look innocent and others look guilty. Their anger turns into obsession. They read things that confirm their fears and ignore anything that challenges them. Basically, logic is flushed down the drain. They don't care about it. All they care about is living in a fantasy where they're the only one who sees the truth. For some narcissists, this stage becomes almost psychotic, dangerous. The anger they used to throw at individuals now spills over into society. They try to control people through fear or by spreading their beliefs. In extreme cases, they may become cult-like leaders or join extreme political movements. Their charm and conviction can attract thousands of followers who share the same anger. Together, they create a world built on shared delusion. Well, we know what the Ranger said is.
The narcissist feels powerful through these minions because they have now found new crowd control. Deep down, though, it's the same old fear running the show. They're terrified of being exposed, terrified of being ordinary, terrified of feeling guilt. So they keep projecting their darkness outward. They create us versus them stories to protect themselves from seeing that the real war is inside them. As they go deeper into this delusion, they begin to sound completely detached from reality. If you try to reason with them, they'll twist your words and accuse you of being part of the problem. Facts do not matter anymore because facts threaten their fantasy. If something does not fit their story, they simply change it. Gaslighting.
They may even say things like, "The truth is hidden," or "You're blind like the rest." The more alone they become, the more convinced they are that they are light and right. Spiritual awakening versus narcissistic delusion. Now, do not confuse it with what you may be going through. If we are looking at a spiritual awakening, what's called the dark night of the soul, that's an entirely different concept. You are an empath. You're facing your fears, taking responsibility for healing your wounds, and recognizing your purpose. You're not delusionally believing anything that comes your way. You're not just erasing your mistakes and purifying yourself without walking through the fire, if you will. That's not what's going on. So these are two different realities, even though on a behavioral level, it may look the same. Back to the narcissist. See, they're acting out of fear, not just arrogance. Without their fantasy, they feel worthless. Their sense of self heavily depends on feeling special, either as a hero or as a victim. When no one believes them, they tell themselves that being rejected proves their greatness. See how twisted they are. They twist pain into pride. They would rather believe the world is corrupt than admit they are wrong. When they reach this stage, it is almost impossible to help them. They have lost touch with reality. They're constantly angry, pissed off, suspicious, and restless. They read threats in everything. They blame the world for their failures, the people for their loneliness, the universe for their emptiness. And yet, they never stop to see that the common factor, the common denominator in all of these problems is them. The final collapse in isolation. Some narcissists completely collapse at this stage. When no one listens, when the audience disappears, the silence becomes unbearable. They just cannot simply sit with it. Without conflict, they have no purpose. Some fall into deep depression. Others retreat into isolation. But most will rebuild their fantasy again. They'll come back to life. They will find a new group to hate, a new movement to join, or a new cause to blame. Anything is better than facing the truth, so they will eventually find another scapegoat. The most dangerous narcissists become obsessed with control. They spread fear and misinformation. They attack anyone who questions them. Their paranoia grows until they see enemies everywhere. They may accuse their own friends of betrayal, children, or see strangers as part of a plot against them. Like my father. It's not rational. It is their crazy survival that doesn't make any sense. Their mind is falling apart, but their ego refuses to die quietly. That is narcissistic rigidity. For those who once loved them, watching this may be heartbreaking. The same person who once blamed you for everything is now blaming the whole world. Why is it heartbreaking? Because you realize that it was never about you at all. You are just the nearest mirror. Unfortunately, now that you're gone, they're fighting the reflection of themselves in everything they see. The war within, false self versus real self. What is happening inside them is a war between two parts. The false self that must stay perfect, and the real self that knows the truth. The real self is buried under shame, fear, and loneliness. The false self is the actor on stage, shouting, accusing, and pretending to be in control. When the audience leaves, the actor keeps performing because stopping would mean facing what is behind the mask. Eventually, when their own lines stop working, they begin to contradict themselves, repeat the same stories again and again in a loop, and change their narratives to suit their emotions. Their world shrinks until it's just them against everyone else. They may sound loud and confident, but inside they are collapsing. Every new accusation, every new theory, every angry post is a cry for help they will never admit to. Conclusion: the inescapable mirror. So what really happens when a narcissist runs out of people to blame? They start seeing enemies everywhere because they can't bear to look within. Their biggest enemy is themselves. Because of this self-sabotage, they end up trapped inside their own lies, cut from empathy, love, and peace they could have gotten from others. In the end, they're not powerful, they're terrified. Their need to blame was never about control. It was about psychopathic, predatory survival. They blame because they can't face the mirror, and when there is no one left to blame, the mirror is all that is left. What does it show them? It shows them everything they have avoided seeing all their life, and that is the one truth they cannot survive, no matter what. Have you witnessed this in your life? Let me know in the comments. With that, let's bring this one to an end. Thank you so much for listening. I'll talk to you in the next one. Until then, as always, let the healing begin.